Corey, coming at you from DangerKatts Central, and I'd like to welcome you to episode 7 of Makers, where I speak with artists who shape and make culture. I'd like to introduce you to this week's guest, musician, songwriter, composer, Rob Johnson. Rob, how you doing?
Hey, Daniel, I'm doing great. How you doing?
You know, it's a decent day. It's a decent Monday here in Los Angeles right now, so can't complain too much. So I'll tell you a little about Rob here from his official bio. Through the course of 30 plus years in the music industry, Rob's experiences have included work in such diverse disciplines as television and film scoring, rock and roll, musical theater, cabaret, and pop. Rob's music has been used in thousands of TV shows and films, and so, you know, it's like The Voice, America's Got Talent, commercials, trailers. His musical Curley, the musical, and an adaptation of The Gift of the Magi have been produced many times. Curley on a 14-month extended run in the heart of Boston's theater district, and Magi in theaters across the country from Boston to California. So without further ado, from here in Los Angeles, California, Rob Johnson. Hey, Rob.
Hey.
So where are you right now? Looks like are you in your studio?
Yeah, I'm in my studio here in
Cool.
Burbank, California.
Okay, so yeah, I'm in North Hollywood, so we're probably 5 minutes apart.
Right. Yeah.
All right, cool. Now I'm gonna just jump right in and ask the first question that I ask of all my guests on the show. What sort of art do you make, and what do you think is your role in shaping culture at large?
Wow, those are big questions.
Yeah.
So what was the first part of that question? I'm sorry.
What kind of art do you make, and what is your what do you think is your role in shaping culture?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I feel like with me, it's probably two sides to that. I just love songwriting. I'm obsessed with songwriting.
Yeah.
And I feel that maybe hopefully my influence on culture is, I'm a big Beatles fan. I feel like, you know, some of their music really did change the world. So I'd like to think that, hopefully the integrity of my song speaks honestly to people, influences them in a positive way. Yeah. That's all I hope for. I'm always diving deep for honesty in my songs, my lyrics, and that's usually the way I gauge things. If it has that sort of universal goosebumps thing, where I feel like most people could probably relate to the sentiment of what's going on here in this song, is usually my goal. So it's trying to connect people in a way, I guess.
Cool, good. Yeah, I can tell you're a Beatles fan. The instrument directly behind your head there.
The awesome.
So,
right.
Yeah, there you go. Got Paul McCartney going there.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Cool. Well, now, and I have to say, full disclosure, Rob and I have not met in person until now, sort of, but we are connected on social media, and we have a common friend in Alice Calise, who is one of my all-time favorite people. So I do follow a lot of Rob's exploits, and I've seen lately, actually, some of the, you've been posting some pictures of a band you used to be in. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Oh, I've just been digging in the boxes of photos and coming across some doozies of, they're mainly like, I'm an old rocker. So these are like 80s. I was a band called The Outlets. Lots of bands in Boston.
So you're from Boston?
I moved to Boston I was only like 17. So I lived there for 20 years.
Okay.
And, I was born in Fargo, North Dakota, and now famous because of the TV show. So I grew up in Fargo, and then I sort of moved in Kansas City for a year, Denver for a year, and then I moved out to Boston and was there for 20 years. And, Boston's a great town. A lot of music, there was a ton of music in the 80s. I mean, it's just bands everywhere, and it was a really, it was a creative time, and not a lot of bands getting signed. I mean, kind of, unbelievably so, because there were just so many great bands. I mean, you could throw a rock and you'd hit a band that could be signed. I mean, they were great, Yeah. And it was kind of, so I was just one of, millions of people in bands in the Boston scene. And I don't know what to say about it. But yeah, the pictures I posted today were a band called the Outlets, and they were kind of a big headlining band in Boston.
Yeah.
A lot of fans. Their fans went nuts, you know. I was just kind of a hired gun bass player, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I had my own bands where I was kind of the lead singer, main songwriter guy.
Mm-hmm.
But the Outlets were fun because they'd been around for a while, and they just had, you know, their fans were just up against the stage ready to rock, you know. They were that kind of, you know, so it's fun playing with them.
Yeah, there was yeah, I'm from Florida, and there were some bands like that. There was a band that was kind of a very, almost like an AC/DC type of group called Jackal, I think. And they're probably still around. I mean, they were really big in Florida, you know, but I don't know if they made it out into the national scene. But then, you know, we had some breakouts like Rob Thomas, what was this?
Matchbox?
Yes, Matchbox. Yeah, there was
Right.
Matchbox. That was kind of like our big breakout rock band.
Right.
You know, in the late '90s. We had then we had the boy band and the pop singers, all the Mickey Mouse kids that grew up in the early 2000s. But
Right.
yeah, it was Matchbox was kind of our big a breakout rock band. There was another band that I loved called.
Was that Orlando? Was that in Orlando?
Yeah.
Band?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, because Matchbox had been around. They were called Tabitha's Secret for a while, and I would always hear ads about Tabitha's Secret playing a club or whatever. I never saw them.
Mhm.
But, yeah, but then they got huge. You know, Clear Channel had offices in Orlando, and I guess that, you know, there was a lot of opportunity in Orlando starting in the late '90s for bands to kind of make a national scene. There's Seven Mary 3. That was another band actually in Orlando that kind of broke on the national scene for a minute. And
Yeah.
Another one called My Friend Steve, who's like, I absolutely love them. They only got to do one album, and things went bad with the label, and they couldn't keep going. But they were a huge band. They were a band that I love a lot. I still listen to that one album all the time.
Right.
So what was it in Boston? You think that bands weren't getting signed? Was there just not was there just not as much industry there as far as like radio and stuff?
It's really hard to say. I mean, my theory about it was like, I kind of come from the sort of like the punk kind of era, and I think that like there was bands that were, I think by the '90s, like I knew the guys, the Mighty Boss Tones and those kind of bands.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they got signed, and you know, Amy Mann, Until Tuesday, but they were so they were kind of contemporaries of, you know, the bands I was in, and they were kind of the one band that sort of got signed, you know.
Yeah.
And there was bands got signed, but they didn't necessarily get signed in the right way, you know.
Yeah.
Like, you know, with the full backing of the record company or whatever that is. So I think I think the record companies just weren't really ready, because I don't think the punk and new wave or whatever it was, the alternative rock wasn't really huge. I mean, there was the Cars, of course, and, you know, and Aerosmith, you know, the big Boston bands. I was just sort of surprised that there wasn't more bands getting signed because of the Cars' success. You know, there were a lot of bands that got signed, but it's kind of like those sort of shady, like tax write-off sign deals, you know, that didn't really, you know, they didn't really get the treatment that they deserved, you know.
Yeah.
Like even the Outlets. I mean, the Outlets polished up could have been like, you know, huge, because the songs are really melodic and, you know, and just big, you know, big rock, you know. But definitely, yeah, I don't even know how to describe it. It was melodic. It was, you know, it was pop. You know, it was really like, it was like pop punk, you know, before, you know, Green Day sort of, you know, exploded with that 10 years later. But, you know, they pretty much like Green Day back in the, you know, early 80s. So.
Oh, really?
That kind of sound, you know, it was great.
What was your what was your first band? Like, what was your first kind of musical origin? Like maybe on the Boston scene?
I got even started before, but like I was a really young musician, because I was like, I had an older brother who's about 6 years older, you know, and he basically taught me how to basically accompany him while he pretended, you know, while he, you know, was Eric Clapton, basically. You know, he said, here's the chords. So he taught me how to play like boogie woogie piano and guitar and bass, you know, just to accompany him. And I'm like, you know, 6 years old. And at first I was kind of like, you know, I'll beat you up if you don't do it kind of thing. And then, you know, a couple weeks later, I'm like, I really like this, you know?
Yeah. Cool.
So, so by the time I was like 7 or 8, like I was actually could really play really good boogie woogie piano, and just figuring out Hey Jude and stuff by ear, and just stuff like that. Because he just showed me the chords, and I'm like, oh, C, A minor. It just all makes sense to me. So so I got an early start. So I played in bands with him. We played in a cover band. Like, I quit school like at 16, and I went out to Denver and I played in this kind of cover band. We're doing all the 70s, Foreigner and all that kind of music. So we did that for a while, and then, I was still really young, and we went, I was in a top 40 band making really good money. I'm 17. We're playing like disco in the Black Angus, restaurants for a month each.
Yeah.
Making like $5 each in the 70s. I mean, as a 17-year-old kid, that was huge money. So that was really great. And I did that for like 6 or 7 months straight. Then I came out to Boston. I was only like 17, kind of going on 18. And then we, played in a lot of rock bands. The first band was with my brother, Jeff. We did we're in a band called the Mystery Dates. And we were a great band. And we had this drummer who was
fun name.
Yeah, his whole name, like the we were very pop, and we were really good, and we had the drummer from a band called the Atlantics, which were a huge local band. So we rocked. I mean, it was like, wow, the drummer behind was like, whoa, this is good. This feels, we're ready to take over the world. But we kind of just, whatever, just couldn't get along.
Your brother kept threatening to beat you up if you didn't go to that.
Yeah. And he's like 6 years old or so. He's always that older brother guy.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Kind of a Liam and Noel type of thing.
What's that?
Kind of a Liam and Noel Gallagher type rivalry.
Yeah. We were just constantly at each other's throats. I mean,
Oh,
but my brother's a great musician, and we had fun.
Cool. So yeah, man. So yeah, you got started really early, and you were doing bands. Yeah. So you're a real journeyman, lifelong lifer in the scene.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I was just always musically obsessed. Like most people. Like you're 4 years old, you hear music, and you just go gaga. And then my brother sort of showed me how to do it. Like shortly thereafter. And so I've been kind of Yeah, I'm just like really, I mean, the rock thing, I think really as I got older as a person's like, I just want to be writing like a hermit in the studio, just writing, because, in a rock band, there's all this, waiting around and sound checks and, all the other stuff. And it's not very musical. It's, 23 hours of bullshit for, 1 hour of rocking, So. Yeah. The older I got, the more I wanted to get into the studio and more get into just writing, purely writing and recording.
Okay, cool.
That's
so
really where the joy is.
Yeah, so tell me about Sensitive Robot. That's where you're kind of realizing that vision, right?
Yeah, I guess Sensitive Robot was just sort of invented as this sort of, collaborative effort so I could do all the crazy things that I kind of want to do. Write with various people, various singers, various talented folks like Alex and others. And so, it really wasn't thought of it in a sort of business way. It was more thought of as just like, well, let's just create this, identity. This isn't, the Rob Johnson show. I can just be, I kind of like being behind the scenes a little bit,
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just a big, creative project. We kind of do whatever we want. And this whole Hush Puppies thing, that was just like, I'd written some musicals because like, I sort of like, even in my late 20s, I'm kind of like, I'd seen Spinal Tap too many times. I'm too old for this rock stuff, I'm gonna write musicals, so I started doing that in my late 20s. And so this Hush Puppies thing is kind of a return to that whole writing for characters, which is a real treat, because like I can write songs that are like, this was Rob and his thoughts, but I love to write songs for other characters.
Yeah.
I always find myself in those songs, and it just opens up a whole story to write for, instead of like, oh, I'm going to write about that relationship for the 150th time, or that breakup, way back when, or whatever it is,
Yeah. Mining that old territory.
Exactly.
So you've done some, yeah. So Sensitive Robot, part of it is collaboration. So you've done some songs with Alex.
Yeah.
Like, you did like I Travel Light and Rise.
Yeah.
Those were really good songs.
Thank you.
And yeah. You also did a kind of a cycle of turn of the century Parisian style kind of folk songs. And tell us about these French songs that you and Alex created together.
I mean, it was just basically, I'm just like, what do you want to do next, Alex?
Mm-hmm.
And she just kind of blurted out, like, I'd like to do some, French tunes, like Edith Piaf, I guess her name is.
Yeah.
And, I didn't really know much about it. And I just sort of dove in and started listening to Edith's music. And then kind of, she's kind of more of a 50s. I think that was her heyday. So I sort of listened to 50s and 60s French music. And I'm like, this is great. I love all kind of music. I'm not like I like good music and I don't like bad music. I mean, that's really my,
Mm-hmm.
So once I dove into that world, and there's nostalgic qualities too, I'm kind of a 60s, 70s guy. I mean, Beatles and 70s music. So, so this French thing was kind of had that nostalgic kind of thing that kind of remembered from being a very small kid.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just dove into like writing these French type songs. It really made no sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
But started writing them, and then we were sort of getting a chuckle. We thought, well, these are kind of earnest, and they're not joke songs. They're really sort of, they're English spoken French, sounding songs with the chord, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah. They're a lot of fun. Had you ever thought about like making a show out of it? Because the songs sound like they could be part of a musical.
Oh my God. Talk to Alex, because I was thinking the same thought like the other day. It's like, they're almost, you could just like weave a story into them,
mm-hmm.
because you can make a jukebox musical out of, what's pre-existing, which I think we have we've only released 2, but we have about 7 or 8 songs.
Wow.
Yeah, they sound like these little musical theater, ditties, like a Parisian.
Cookie Cafe, 1902, Alex with a cigarette holder.
Yeah. We could totally do that. And that's probably what we will do next.
But, leave it to Alex. You're just like, you leave it open up the wide creative world. What do you want to do next? She'll say, I want to do turn of the century Parisian French songs.
I know. Like, she's even like, I think I finally met because I've always been a diverse person. I think really the curse of the Beatles fandom, it's like, I could never be in a band, because it's like, I love AC/DC or whatever, but it's like, okay, when are we going to do the nice ballad with the, with the glockenspiel in it? It's like, I love the diversity diversity in music. Yeah. So what's my point? My point is like, Alex will just go out in the left field. I almost want to reel her in. It's like, that's not really consistent with Rise. We want to kind of like, we're going to, if we start doing these Parisian tunes.
Yeah.
But I can appreciate it, so I kind of reel her in a little bit, and she sort of reels me out a little bit.
Yeah. Sounds like a good collaboration. You just have to find a good. I'm sure there's going to be a good accordion player somewhere here in town that you can pull in for those sessions.
Yeah, totally. And we do have a guy. He played on those first 2 songs we released. Somebody I've never been in a room with, but found him through the internet, and it's just like Fiverr. I use a lot of Fiverr people. It's like. Yeah. Throw horns and accordions on my music, and that's the beauty of the modern age.
Yeah.
Guy's amazing. They'll lay down just like, yeah, that's perfect, we're done.
Yeah. Very cool. So I'll talk about Hush Puppies in just a minute, because that's the new project. But first I want to ask you about some of your past shows and some of the titles that I mentioned in the intro. And I just want to say, like I've written books and graphic novels and full-length stage plays,
right.
A lot of stuff, but I've never written a musical. I dabbled at one point in attempting to adapt one of my graphic novels, but it just didn't come to fruition. So can you tell me in general about the process and about some of the success that you've had producing those shows?
Yeah, musical theater is one of these things I just sort of dove into in my 20s, not really being, well, I don't know how you came to it, but I was like, I love musicals. I love the Sound of Music, movie, like that was basically, I was coming from a very general place,
Yep. Yeah.
But then once I got into it, I sort of studied up on it, and, and once I started writing for it, I really enjoyed it because of, just the just the whole story and character aspect, it just opened up the, it just made me so prolific to have all that stuff to serve with lyrics and songs. So, yeah, the first musical I wrote was back in the late 80s. It was based on Washington Irving's Rip Van Winkle. So we did our own production of it. It was a great show. I mean, so that was just a kind of a one-off thing. It was our first foray into it. And then I got asked to do this musical based on a controversial four-time mayor, James Michael Curley, who was a real scallywag. So
just in Boston.
Word.
Yeah, there you go. We're back in turn of the century still.
Yeah, that kind of lingo,
Yeah.
He was a controversial figure, and so I wrote that show, and Nancy and I produced a lot of my musicals. So we just sort of dove in like complete novices, and Curly was the first, big thing we did, and we actually, like you said in the opening, we ran for like 15 months. We had this funky little space right in Boston Theater District. I mean, you couldn't have a better location.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, the location was like, we could always stuff about 130 people in there, but that was cool. The location was great. We ran the show for 15 months.
Wow.
And it was a real, it was the hardest I've ever worked in my life. Theater. I mean, it's grueling. And then when you add the musical on top of the play stuff, then you got the dancing and the this, and it's like, it's insane,
Yeah.
So I remember we went on a vacation, like a 4-day weekend, and we just slept the whole time. We were so exhausted from producing that show for like a year. It was just, it just killed us, but but it was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
Yeah, that's always the thing with live theater, because I've done a lot of small plays and whatnot. And the thing is like, once you engage, you're like, okay, we're going to do this. And about, a couple of weeks in rehearsing, you're like, why did I get myself into this?
Right.
But then when you go do it, you're like, oh, it's so rewarding,
Right.
So that's it's just the memory. And then the next time you go do it, you fall into the same cycle because you only remembered the good part from last time,
It's nerve-wracking,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of the aspect I don't like about it, because it isn't really, it's just in your memory. I mean, how you've ever had a videotape of one of your shows or something. It's like, it doesn't really capture it.
Right.
And you kind of feel like, well, I remember it, kicking ass, and we had some great, shows.
Yeah.
But it's all kind of, so that's why it's kind of fun to do something that's a little bit more, locked down to some, video or audio, but which is, like the Hush Puppies thing. So yeah, we did the Curly thing, and then after that, we did the musical adaptation of The Gift of the Magi, which is a short story that's like 2 pages long. But
so sad. Yeah.
And,
so wonderful, though. Yeah.
She sells her hair to buy the watch for, he sells the watch to buy her combs for her hair. It's a very simple story.
Yeah.
But we made it into a 90-minute show. It's really it's a cute little show. Yeah. And it really, so we've gotten about a dozen productions of it. We hustled it for a while, kind of promoting it to various, mainly community theaters.
Yeah.
So we've gotten, lots of bites. And in fact, somebody produced it out here in LA. Just coincidentally, they were, only about 30 miles away. I forget where it was. Anyway, so that was nice. Just a bunch of kids,
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I was going to say, that sounds like something that would be nice for high schools to produce.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We saw high school do it, and they had a big cast. We produced it with like 8 people, but high school they have like 50 people, so the choral numbers.
Everybody, yeah, all the kids that don't know what to do with the nip in the chorus or something.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, which works for me, for the composer, just like, yeah, that's a big sound.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, that must be pretty rewarding, especially seeing a bunch of kids, do it, because it's, you're like enriching their lives and the memories that you're creating for those kids and doing their first musical, probably.
Totally, 100%.
Yeah.
And like back to your like question of like, that whole like, what is your influence on culture? It is that kind of like that buzz when you think of like the stuff that happened to you as a child and you just like made you come alive, you know, seeing, you know, maybe some school, you know, play or something that just, you just, wow, this is amazing. Like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, or this really is interesting to me. Like, if you can touch people in that way,
yeah,
and that's where, like, you know, just having, you know, young kids do your show, you know, maybe one or two of them, it really did alter the course of their life. Who knows, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I would bet money that it did. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really sweet.
Yeah, it's very cool. So now your latest project, the new project, is Hush Puppies. It's an audio drama / musical.
Yeah.
The story is told, punctuated with songs. Now, did this come about because of quarantine, or were you planning on this format before?
Actually, before,
Yeah.
you know, I think
This is not very common. Yeah. The format's not common. Yeah.
it really isn't, you know. I kind of like, it's not really a podcast musical, but like when I Googled podcast musical, there's like 3 of them, you know?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Great.
there's not really that, you know, it's not really a big cast. It's like one narrator sort of delivering the story. So it's a very lean sort of project, but we feel it works. So it's I kind of look at it as like a concept album with narration, you know?
Yeah.
So we sort of, that project came about because like I was the lead singer in this country band out in Santa Barbara called the Rawhides, and I was kind of writing material for them. It's like, hey, you want some original? And we were kind of a cover band. It's like, why don't we do a set of originals? Like, okay, go ahead and write them. So I'm just writing songs, and out popped this song called Kevin's Mom, which is basically, Hush Puppies is based upon like one of my best friends, closest friends, named Kevin McNally. And he had a very traumatic childhood. I mean, when we first started hanging out about 15 years ago, we got on the subject of his childhood, and I'm like, whoa.
It's tale. Yeah.
Yeah. So when he told me that, and then just like I'm writing songs, and all of a sudden, you know, I just thought about, you know, him telling me about that, and I wrote this, you know, very sad song called Kevin's Mom. And, you know, so that song was like 9 years ago, and then, you know, 7 or 8 years later, whenever we started Hush Puppies, I'm like, let's finish this song cycle, you know, Kevin's Mom, and, you know, what's next? So I basically sat down with Kevin. I'm like, I need to interview about your whole childhood. So we sat down, turned on the recorder, and, you know, he talked for about 3 hours. And then we sort of looked at it, and I'm like, okay, there's, you know, I wrote in song titles, and just sort of like, and we could tell there's a story there. So we just went from there. And he wrote the script, and I wrote the lyrics and the music.
Very nice. Yeah, I mean, and I listened to it earlier today, and it's a very engaging and very interesting piece, and the story is amazing, and the songs are great. So congratulations.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
thank
absolutely.
You.
Could you tell us a little bit about the story of Kevin's story of it in Hush Puppies?
Yeah, without giving it away, basically he, you know, his mother died at a very young age, and all, you know, what transpired after her death was just kind of like, it was just Murphy's Law in full effect. And so he had to sort of gather his wits and sort of get himself out of a very dire situation at a very young age, and managed to do it. And so it's really kind of it's a triumphant sort of happy ending story. You know, it goes through some pretty dark stuff, but ultimately, I mean, Kevin's such like a normal, relaxed, like normal guy. Like, I'm like, you should be like neurotic or have a twitch or something. I mean, you know, it's like,
why am I so neurotic? You know?
Yeah, I know. I'm like, I'm all crazy, and I had to have half as bad a childhood. So I forget my point, but yes, I don't know.
Yeah, but yeah, it was like the story. I mean, his childhood. I mean, this could be an episode of like 2020. It's like an international incident, you know, with as far as like, you know, he's in another country,
right,
with some people that aren't good for him, and you know, some people are trying to, you know, it's like it's about child custody, but it's across the world, and you know, he's living in the jungle and all this. It's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, and just because, you know, and there were some key sort of good Samaritan folks that sort of guided him. He was 13, so pretty young, and they sort of helped him, find his freedom and away from all this danger, pretty much. I mean, it was pretty dangerous and dire circumstances that if he didn't, get out of that situation, he would have been, who knows,
Yeah. But I mean, just the fact that, he went through a lifetime of that and has come to this, and now his story is being told in this way. It's quite a victory, Yeah.
Yeah. I just love Kevin's story. I mean, I think he's kind of like whatever about it, but I'm like, no, dude, I'm telling you, this is like, I mean, I might be wrong, but it's good to see, like, you've watched it, and some other people have watched it, and like, well, this is a very moving story, and so I'm feeling good about it. You get so damn close to your own stuff, you don't know if it sucks out loud or if it's the greatest thing ever, or somewhere in between, So I have no objectivity,
You're an artist.
There's sketchy little numbers in there, that's all I can say with any confidence,
Yeah.
But I think it is. I mean, I can't be that crazy. It's a moving story. It's something I think that'll definitely. I think their heart will, go out to a situation, and they'll enjoy the story and sort of arc of the story. It's a roller coaster ride.
Yeah. Now, I was thinking as I was listening to this. I mean, a lot of people may naively think, it's just audio. It probably wasn't that difficult. It's
right.
But we know that not to be the case whatsoever. Right. In art like this. Everything is hard. It doesn't matter. It's like, oh, it's easy. You're not staging it, so it's not that hard, right? No, there's going to be something else. So that makes it the big challenge. So how long did it take and write and produce Hush Puppies, and what challenges did you face that were unique to this format?
I think just the voiceover artist is super important. I mean, the songs I have to admit, the songs did write themselves pretty fast.
Yeah.
But it was just kind of keeping. I was just always in touch with Kevin, be like, okay, I have this wacky idea to write a song about, the social worker, and we'll call it Faye Diamond. And, he'd be like, that sounds great, dude. So it wasn't so much a challenge, but it was us coordinating all this stuff. And yeah, it's hard. You want to make sure that every word is perfect, and every, song into transition into voiceover into song is like, you just do your best, and you just make sure that's like, we wanted it to be lean, air on the side of like, let's not blah, 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 I mean, selfishly, it's a great vehicle for songs, so I'm like, oh, great. I can sort of write all these songs, and I'm super inspired to serve this story with songs. So that part of it went fairly easily, but kind of working with Kevin, and then ultimately working with the voiceover artist, and then just editing it, and if you do anything, anybody who does, when you do stuff, you just like go like, that person over there finished that project, so they're awesome. You get a different perspective. I think when you're a non-doer, you go like, that sucked,
Right, yes.
But if you're a doer, you're like, no, he finished, excellent. I mean, I think our show is more than that. I think it's, put your headphones on. I think it's 36 minutes of a nice little story and some good tunes. And I think I think it sort of demands, people not be, on their treadmill or bouncing their check, their checkbook or something like that. Really, you need to, it's like reading a book, I think, an audio experience. I mean, you can't really, you have to focus, I think, to really enjoy it, so it's probably different than just listen to a regular album.
Yeah.
In that respect. But I think if people do that, hopefully most of them will dig it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So, like you said, I mean, there's not been a lot of this done. I mean, I imagine in the pre-TV days of American radio, maybe something like this existed.
Yeah.
Radio
or something.
Yeah, you know, where they would tell a story and it would be punctuated with songs. But I mean, because like I know probably a lot of the viewers out there are familiar with, you know, before television, there were radio dramas that people would get. You know, everybody's seen A Christmas Story. So if you're struggling to relate to what I'm talking about out there, A Christmas Story, when they're sitting in front of the radio and they're listening to Little Orphan Annie, right?
Right. Yeah.
That was like the radio dramas. They would actually hear the stories played out in dialogue and sound effects and music and stuff like that. So there might have been something like this back then, but it's pretty unique right now. Like, so you said you only found a few. You know, yeah. So
we started jumping there without even knowing if it was a thing. But I think I was so like, well, I'm excited to just write it, you know, musically. So maybe I just sort of jumped in without even thinking, like, is there a market for this stuff? It's like, well, you know, in one way, maybe it's a demo tape. You know, it's a demo for, you know, a musical. Yeah, you know, it could be, you know, a full-length musical. We could expand upon some of these, you know, things that are kind of it's kind of sped through a little bit. I mean, you get the idea, but they could definitely be elaborated upon things in the story. You know, it could be a freaking, you know, it could be a TV show. I mean, it could be, you know, or a mini-series probably. You know.
Yeah, so you've created some IP here. You know, you've locked the story down, and it could go on and find other, you know, other adaptations, which is really good. That's like, you know, that's why I make comics. It's like I want to lock the story down. I want to create it in a visual story format, and you know, it can go on. We can go on and do other things with it. You know, with Moriarty, we ended up, you know, I kind of did the same sort of thing with my Moriarty series. I was like, I don't know if there's been a VR comic. You know, comic where you can actually enter the world of comic in virtual reality and like read the comic, you know. And so I was fortunate enough to be able to partner with some fantastic guys in Australia who created the VR experience there. And yeah, it was just like, it was kind of like the same sort of thing. We kind of dove in and just like, let's give this a try, you know.
Right.
And it was unique, you know.
Yeah. I mean, you're doing it. I mean, things can always get bigger, but I think people go like, well, until we have the money and we have the this and that and the other thing, well, I'm just not going to do anything. And it's like, well, okay, good luck with that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just like,
do
just
something.
jump in. We'll figure it out as we go along.
Yeah. Sometimes you just got it. I mean, there's, you know, it's like when I entered the world of comic books and graphic novel creation and whatnot, I didn't know how difficult it was going to be. But, you know, a lot of the best decisions you make in life involve a naivete, you know, because, you know, I got married really young. We've been married a really long time, my wife and I, and we just dove right in, and it's been great. You know, there's a lot of naivete in that, but it ended up being a good thing. So, you know.
Yeah. Congratulations on that. I've been with my wife, you know, for 30 years or something like that.
Oh, wow. Yeah. We're celebrating 21.
34 years. Yeah. I'm 58. So we met, 86. April 16th, 1986, kid.
I want to guess you're 38. You look young. But
not a day over 57.
Yeah. But it'll be 21 for us in 2 weeks. Marriage. We've been dating for 25 years about, so it's been a little.
Right. Yeah. My wife, we did the 7 years before we tied the knot officially.
Yeah. But yeah, that's, you know, a lot of the best things, you know, I mean, you know, Thomas Edison probably was just like, I bet I could make a light bulb happen. Yeah. I'll do that tomorrow, you know. Yeah. Then, you know, months or whatever years later, finally it worked, or, you know.
Right. Yeah. And I think in the process of that, I confess that I kind of felt like, wow, I'm really faking it till I make it, you know. But in retrospect, and then like how people talk about, you know, theatrical productions that, you know, my wife and I did 20 years ago, they're all like, oh, you guys were amazing. You were like professional. It's like, we were like complete idiots. We didn't know what the hell we were doing. We just sort of figured it out as we went along.
But everybody else doing it too is also, you know, everybody else who's doing it that you perceive as being the grand master or whatever, they're the same as you, you know.
Right.
They're diving in and just doing it out of naivete, you know. That's
maybe they started 6 months earlier, you know, or whatever.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that was the thing. You know, when I actually learned this studying theater, I studied acting and writing and directing in the theater. My mentor is Ken Mulo. He was a Eugene O'Neill winning playwright award,
Right.
Eugene O'Neill award-winning playwright, and he, we had a theater workshop set up in Florida where I was, and he was always telling us that. He's like, we're just coming together into a room here and turning some lights on, and we're doing a play. And he's like, that's how Al Pacino and Robert De Niro and Actors Studio and all those people, they just got into a room in the 1960s and just started doing it. And, we perceived them as the grand masters, but they just kind of stumbled in, and they start off doing just what you're doing right here, which means you can be them if you want someday, So I always took that to heart. And I'm always telling people and encouraging people, if you just do, you jump in and do it, you're going to be among the leaders, the leading class of whatever art you're making. If you just,
I'm a big believer. Just jump,
Yeah.
If you really feel it, I think so many people are like, what if,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of bad stuff, a lot of, you're going to go off course, but you'll, readjust and, I just follow the muse, just see what happens, luckily, I got this sort of music licensing, TV sync thing, and that's kind of paying my bills, so I'm super grateful for that,
Mm-hmm.
but these, hush puppies and stuff like this is like pure from the heart.
Yeah.
We're not even really thinking about the business angle. We're just kind of like, we just wanted to do it. Here it is. It's done.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll listen to it, and that'll be it, or we don't really know, but
Mm-hmm.
we're proud of it, and, we'll see what happens. I just look at everything. It's like, I think you even maybe said it earlier. It's like, well, it's just part of a process,
Mm-hmm.
We did that, and then maybe it'll turn into something bigger, or I'll write another storybook,
Mm-hmm.
story musical, or what do we call it?
Yeah. Audio musical. I don't know.
We renamed it because we were calling it a podcast musical up to a musical story.
Oh, okay.
We're calling it a podcast musical up until about a month ago, and I'm like, it really isn't a musical because there's not multiple characters singing the songs, and
Mm-hmm.
So that I felt that was misleading. But I want to do a podcast musical too, with all different, not just me singing all the tunes,
Mm-hmm.
and take it to the next level up. So
that's interesting. Now, an idea I thought of that I thought I'd throw out at some point, if you, and of course this would end up being a massive amount of work, so you might want to just focus on what you're doing elsewise. But
tell me.
Yeah, but do a story like this. Like if you have an outline of a story and throw it out to several songwriters, and like give each songwriter a scene basically, and you could kind of source the musical that way, and then everybody records the song, and then you tie it together with the audio drama. That could be that would be its own thing too,
That could totally be done. I think as long as all the writers had very specific, like,
Mm-hmm.
make sure you don't veer too far from this part of the story.
Right, yeah.
That could totally work. And with the internet, you can do all this crazy stuff,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
The collaborations you can do. I mean, so I enjoy it. That's a good idea. Have you actually seriously thought about doing that? Or was that just something that popped into your head just a minute ago?
I thought of it while I was listening to your show earlier today, and I put it in my notes to ask you about it, throw it out there, because that's just, it was just an idea that came up. I was actually this past weekend, I did this, I've been doing these, I've done a couple of these like Zoom master classes. There's a local company called Rock Camp. I did this, it was just a Zoom conversation with Steve Lillywhite. And for the audience, Steve is a huge producer. Dave Matthews, U2, Peter Gabriel, he's made like 500 albums. And he was talking about embracing limitations and what a good thing that is, like he was talking about, the musicianship, the playing ability of U2 in the beginning. Some of the guys on their instruments, they weren't, great players, but embracing that limitation, he was able to build, they were able to build something great. So, just having this.
I think parameters are just open you up. Because the sky's the limit, you can do anything. It's like, like a maniac getting nothing done. It's like, you are writing a ballad for the,
yes,
the character in, whatever.
Yeah.
You get specific about what you're doing, all of a sudden, wow, now I'm in creative land, you know?
Yeah. So
I love what, you know.
Yeah.
Did I produce So by Peter Gabriel?
No, that one was that was Daniel Lenoir, but it was
Right.
it was Peter's third album, which I can't ever remember. I think it was Melt or Tear. I get the two confused which one came first. I think it was Melt, where his face is melting.
Oh yeah, with like Games Without Frontiers, that album.
Yeah, probably. I'm gonna look it up now.
It doesn't really matter, but those albums are they just sound great. I mean, they're amazing albums.
Yeah.
So well produced. Gabriel was kind of ahead of his time as far as production. I mean, the songs are great too. But.
Yeah, and he was with Genesis and with his own stuff very very theatrical. Yeah, it was number 3. It was Melt. It was the Melt album.
Right.
Yeah, so I mean, you're embracing almost a Peter Gabriel mindset. You know, Peter Gabriel, I think would jive to this format. You know, just as a creative thing. You know.
Yeah, totally. It's very theatrical, very, just dive in and
yeah.
tell your story and, through music and art and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate him as an artist. He's, I just watched a thing about the making of So, and, that album is just, you listen to like, some of those songs, whoa, they're just so well constructed.
It's like, where did this come from? There's nothing else that sounded like that.
Yeah.
Sense,
Like just the bass sounded like, Sledgehammer or something. It's like, oh my God, the groove is just so, the bottom end of those records is just like amazing. It's just so funky and just grooves,
yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, specifically the So album with the bass lines and such. I read an interview with Daniel Lenoir where he said they did everything to a click track first. They brought in the percussion later, which is interesting because like the percussion and the bass is so intricate. But I guess Tony Levin is so good, or those guys are so good. They're nailing it and they're coming together. They were able to blend it together so well because those guys are nailing it so well. Yeah.
And I guess Gabriel's like writing lyrics, during the process. Mm-hmm. Didn't even use headphones, I think. He liked to sing with speakers, so there's all this bleed and his, it's how they made, and it was made on that farm or something. Yeah, there was a documentary about the making of that. It's like, that was a pretty creative, process, I guess. Yeah.
But, and so, here we are, quarantined away in our respective homes, and you're out there doing it, embracing that spirit and doing it now with Hush Puppies and all of your other work. So good for you. Bravo, sir.
Thank you. I mean, my life was actually perfectly set up for the pandemic because I basically, I work in my studio. I don't really have to go, The only thing that I really had to do was go out and buy groceries. Now I have Instacart doing that.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that doesn't mean the one thing throughout the week is I find myself constantly thinking about the groceries. I have an ongoing grocery list now on my phone. I never had an ongoing grocery list. I would go every day or every other day. What do I need tonight? Okay, But,
yeah, I mean, like, go to Instacart and put in put in that thing before you forget it.
Yeah. But and my wife and I also are very fortunate with our jobs and the things we do. We're able to do a lot from home. So
awesome.
You and I are fortunate that way.
Yeah, totally.
So, but it was really nice. Then what months did you produce Hush Puppies over?
The whole thing started kind of the summer of 19. So we've been doing it for I guess a year. And where are we at? We're probably about 15 months in or something like that.
Oh yeah, so we're November 2020 right now. I know, it's hard to keep track of time.
Everything's like a blur now. So I actually wrote the songs really fast. Like a lot of the musicals I wrote, like The Gift of the Magi, basically, we were selling tickets before I'd even written half the songs. I was just like, I love the pressure of just, speed writing, So, so the songs got sort of written in the first couple of months, and then it was just kind of producing the songs, and working with Kevin to get the script, all, tip-top shape. And So, but it's been a while. It's funny how fast time goes. You know,
Yeah. Still, it's like, you're talking a year and a half there for any of the doubters out there that think that, this was somehow easy or whatever. It's a year and a half you've spent, doing all this.
Yeah, exactly. Just producing songs. I mean, it's not like these songs are pretty straightforward, but you got to get in that ISO booth and do a good vocal. You got to spread that bass and play a good bass line. And you got to program drums. And then you got to do this, and you got to do it a million, and then you got to mix it. If somebody go wrong and just getting one damn song done.
There's a certain character that's coming out of you. It's like somebody out of the cast of MASH or something. I don't know. You got to mix it.
And then it's the crazy, overworked guy. I mean,
yeah.
I guess in the perfect world, I'd have like a factory of producers. Maybe if I ever, do become huge, I'd be like, here's my song, kids. Now go produce.
Once you're Hans Zimmer.
Yeah, like a Hans Zimmer type. I mean, I do love the tweaky aspect of mixing and tracking, but it's just so damn time consuming, because I'm a fast writer. I mean, I can, usually churn out a song before lunch, or at least the good, the better part of it, maybe a third verse and a bridge where I'm like, okay, how it's like. You've written some songs, right? There's a lot of stream of consciousness that just kind of pours out of you.
Yeah.
I mean, like, oh, that third line in the second verse, like, really is horrible, and then you be scratching your head for that line for like 3 days, But
yeah, I mean, it's like you can kind of get the song and write it really fast, but then it really forms over a course of maybe a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
you're not expecting it to. You get more ideas and whatnot, you get different cues of inspiration, and it takes another, and then that's when it really comes to life, is after you kind of get the chunk of the song, and then you let it live a little while, and you get additional inspirations that come along, and that's when the song really becomes a thing.
I believe in two of the opposite process. I believe in that whole, like, don't think, just let it come out, and then I get the exact opposite. I put on my tie, and I'm like, okay, let's examine this song and see where its problems are. Because once you've been around your songs for like many years, and you're like, God, I wish I'd ever wrote that third line in that second verse. I hate it. I hate it. 15 years later, why didn't I take the 10 minutes or whatever it took to just tweak that line, But because you don't want to be too uptight either. You don't want to be like, should we start with the word the or but?
Yeah.
Let's think, and it's like, okay, no.
Yeah.
So this, it's both the stream of consciousness, and I think your best songs do the 2/3 of them are sort of pour out of you in 2 or 3 minutes, and then it's like, then the other bits are really kind of the thing that takes a long time. It's like really the little touches, and just going over every syllable of the lyrics and making sure that that it's all good. Sometimes weird lyrics are like, whatever, like Paul McCartney's like, the movement you need is on your shoulder. He told that to John Lennon. He's like, that's the best line in Hey Jude. He's like, really? It was like, it makes no sense. It's really awesome. But those are the lyrics that like, I think most people write where they're just saying stuff as they strum chords or something. And it's like, well, that doesn't even make sense, but maybe it makes a lot of sense. Let me look at it from a different angle. And then sometimes it's just freaking horrible, and you need to rewrite it.
Yeah. But it's going back and considering those particular parts where the song kind of does kind of come to life. And I mean, I don't know if you could have Hey Jude without that line.
Right. Yeah. Now it's like, no. Yeah.
Yeah. Now it's canon.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Cool. Well, tell us where we can find you online. Where is Sensitive Robot, and where can people find Hush Puppies?
Well, Sensitive Robot, we're on all the major social media platforms. It's Sensitive Robot Music, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that kind of stuff. And Hush Puppies, we're releasing it through CD Baby, so we're doing the big, it's going to be on all the platforms, Spotify, Tidal, Apple Music, blah, 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 YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
So it's coming out this Thursday,
Okay.
the 15th, which is the official release date. We're hoping that people will, listen to it while they're,
Mm-hmm.
laying on the couch after Thanksgiving or something, or prior. It's, so we're getting in right before the Thanksgiving holidays.
It'll be out by the time we post this show and people are watching this, it's out right now for folks that are watching. So I'll actually, if you're watching this on my website, I'm going to have a link to all the outlets where you can go check out Rob's music and check out Hush Puppies. So please read the article that follows this video and check that out.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Perfect. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, so to close out today, I want to give you a little challenge. Okay. So you are a maker. I want to challenge you in the next few days. If you have a chance to make a unique, creative moment, I'd love it if you want to share it with me. It could be a photograph or a bit of audio or video. If you happen upon anything neat or new and you want to share, send it over and I'll post it over for my audience as a special bonus makers moment. So just keep that in mind if you come across anything at all. So,
is it something like you want to see people's creative process or them sort of?
It could be, if you wanted to, you could do a video showing yourself mixing in the studio, or you can do a special rendition of one of your songs, or you can send me a photograph like Justin Emmerd, who was just on the show. He's a photographer as well as a musician with Love in 38. And he sent me a beautiful photograph of a tree that he just loved. And that was his maker's moment. I interviewed Jim Wilson from Daniel Lanois' band. And he just sat down at the piano and played a preview version of a song that's going to be on his next record. Just an iPhone recording, real rough, in the moment.
Right.
So anything at all.
I can do that in here every morning going, third.
There you go.
Recording on my little phone just so I don't forget it.
Yeah, if you just want to play a little something improv and just send me a quick video or something, I'll post that as your maker's moment, and it will live forever and at DangerKatts Central. Cool.
Awesome. Awesome.
Well, Rob Johnson, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's been a really interesting and fun discussion, and I love that you're kind of helped pioneer a new form of art. Good luck to that, and keep posted here on how it's going, and if there's cool updates, so I'll let my audience know. So, but yeah, man, keep in touch, and let me know if there's anything you ever want to talk about. All right.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, you take care now.
You too. Thank you.